welcome on stage Mr. Rajesh Jain, Managing Director and Founder of Netcore Solutions. I would like to welcome you first with a bouquet.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot, Ed, for the wonderful introduction. In fact, when I launched India World, which was the first portal in '95 from India, Cyber Media was one of our key partners at that time. So I remember meeting Pradeep and going to your office in Delhi many times. We had a reference to SMAC. So what comes beyond SMAC? What's next? And that's what I want to talk about today, primarily covering two aspects. MarTech, because customers are becoming smarter, and Internet of Things, because machines are becoming smart. There's a very nice quote by Martha Rogers. In the absence of communication among your customers, advertising rules. But once your customers start communicating with each other, it's the customer experience that counts. And that's exactly what's changing. Customers are becoming digital, they are going social, and they are being empowered with information. This is the big change in the past few years, and that necessitates change in how we do marketing. There's a responsiveness part. You have to be fast, quick TAT, and real time. Massive scale is possible when it comes to reach. And you can now run targeted and personalized campaigns. Essentially, marketing technology, marketing is getting Linuxified. The costs of reaching customers are falling because of adoption of social mobile. You can reach today 800, 900 million customers, and we'll see that later in a campaign, the membership campaign that BJP did and its outreach as a case study. The costs of data storage and processing are falling dramatically. And you have, of course, cloud, SaaS, DIY tools for measurement, analytics. So all of these elements are making possible things which we could not have done or even imagined a few years ago. And the result is that in marketing, it's not just admin or madmen, it's also mathmen that need to now come in. So marketing is now a technical discipline, not just a creative discipline. And that opens up tremendous opportunities for all CIOs who are there. Technology, data, digital content, analytics are the new additional skills that are required in marketing. Experimentation, iteration, a lot of things which we associate with technology, software development, they are now coming in the field of marketing. And it's possible to do mass personalization, basically targeting a single person. And this is a great quote in Ram Charan's latest book, The Attacker's Advantage, second chapter. With companies able to collect and control information on the entire experience of a customer, the math house, which is the business, can now focus on each customer as an individual. In a manner of speaking, we are back to the artisan model of a couple hundred years ago, where a market segment comprises a single individual. So a company having, you're a bank or any e-commerce company having millions of customers, each one can now be treated individually. So imagine having a dedicated sales rep for every customer. Marketing technology can help in the entire process, whether it's customer acquisition, customer servicing, customer engagement. So what was traditionally just the domain of the marketer is now getting impacted by technology at every stage. So whether it's in terms of lead qualification, nurturing, recycling, and we'll see a couple of examples later on. The entire customer onboarding example, how can you communicate with them, reach out to them electronically, digitally. Collecting data, every interaction that you have as a business with the customer can generate data. Now, what do you do with it? How can you clean it up? How can you connect different pieces of data together? How can you enrich it with third-party data? And all of this becomes important because you want to be able to treat each customer uniquely. There's a very interesting example out here, which I want to play out, of what technology can really do. So billboard basically comes to life. I mean, as kids, we would look at aeroplanes basically flying up. We don't know where it's going. We don't know which plane it is. But being able to combine GPS of where the billboard is with the information from air traffic control, you can track flights in real time pretty much everywhere. The billboard now becomes the real-time display of which flight is just flying above you. So this really gives an example, combines multiple technologies to create a very engaging and unique, distinctive customer experience. And what we are seeing with technology is what I call the rise of the marketing hacker. So just the CIO function itself is not good enough for tomorrow's world. The ability to also understand what marketers do, I think, is very important, because the role that's coming up now is one which blends both information and marketing together, technology and marketing together, into that of what you can think of as a chief marketing technologist. And that, I think, is a very interesting opportunity for every CIO. Marketing is basically getting disrupted with the availability of data and technology. How can you now, each one of you, look at this transformation as an opportunity? Understanding the core business functions, and therefore applying technology, applying data to create what hitherto was a pure marketer's domain, creating unique and transformational customer experiences. You got to start thinking workflows, and we'll see an example of this later on. You can run automated campaigns to customers because of their digital identity. The three principles of MarTech. Number one, unified view of the customer. Can you integrate data which is spread across silos in the organization? So every touch point that is there, can you connect it all together? So for a bank, there are multiple products. Now can you take all of this, dedupe it, get it to a single individual? Can you enrich it with third-party data? So essentially getting a single unified view of a customer, irrespective of how the customer is interacting. Then cross-channel automation. There are multiple ways to reach out to the customer today. You have SMS, you can have voice calls, USSD, email, Facebook custom audience, Twitter, targeting the person through a cookie on Google. All of this now becomes possible. So how can you automate all of this? And this is through workflows. Push notifications also. And then how do you do data-driven personalization? The content of the message, the timing of the message. So using profile data, behavioral data, and social data to be able to customize what you send out. There are a large number of companies which have emerged in this space. This is from chiefmartech.com. It's a great blog by Scott Brinker. 1,000+ companies across the space. And these are examples of marketing stacks. I mean, you would never typically have thought about this maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And these are 3 examples which I've taken from Scott's blog, where you have specialized companies with software solutions in every one of the layers of the stack. And I think that is where the opportunity for CIOs is. You're not just looking at internal, say, process automation or the information flows. There is an opportunity now to look at, like I said earlier, the customer experience. And that is really central to a business. Whether it's B2B or B2C, how can you improve the customer experience based on data, automation, and personalization? And there are a large number of databases available today. You have Mobile numbers, which of course many companies would have, email, Facebook IDs, Twitter IDs, you have Aadhaar, and many government databases are available. Some publicly, some depending on the business you are in. Now, the key challenge in all of this is today many of these sort of work in silos, work independently. And the key opportunity and a starting point really is, how do you connect all of this together? How do you connect a person's mobile number to an email ID, to a cookie, so you can track the person on the web, to a token ID, so you know what the person is doing on the app and the mobile, a Facebook ID, so you can reach the person on social networks, Twitter, and Aadhaar. So the starting point for all of this is collecting data at every touch point. This is, I think, the first thing to look at. What are all the customer interactions that are happening? Even if you can't figure out what to do with it, a good starting point once you go back to work is, can I collect data at every touch point? And it's not just online, offline. Imagine you walk into a store, like let's say you walk into a crossword. Crossword today doesn't even know that you've entered. But imagine if you walked in and you could give a missed call. There's a board placard which says, give a missed call and get great offers. Now with your mobile number, many of us have privilege cards, the loyalty programs of companies. They can now send you an SMS, an email, a push notification, whatever, in the next 30 seconds, telling you based on your purchase history, linked up with your mobile, of course, these are great offers that we have for you. This is what an Amazon does on its website. This can be replicated in the physical world. Once you do the transaction, it can tell you based on what you've just bought, here are 3 additional items, which if you buy in the next half an hour, will give you an additional 5 or 10% off. Now, all of this requires data to be collected online and offline. It means creating a unified view of every customer, and think of customer journeys. Now, when customers are there, especially new customers, how do you onboard them? How do you convert them into 100% customers, maximizing the revenue from each one of them? Each one of us has a different threshold of spend. How do you understand that? It's a very interesting case study. I mean, BJP, many of you all would have known, started this membership campaign last November. Now, the key thinking behind this campaign was that 17 crore people voted for the BJP in 2014 elections. Who were they? No idea. If elections were to be held tomorrow, could those people be tapped in again? No idea. So every election, in effect, the party is starting its battle from scratch with 0 databases available to them, or just intuition from people on the field. So the idea was to create a membership campaign where a mobile number was linked with a unique membership ID. People had to just give a missed call to a number. They would get an SMS back, which would ask them to then send their name, email ID, address, voter ID, and PIN code. And all of that could then get connected to their mobile number from the voter ID. One could actually take it down to the constituency and to the polling booth level. So then when elections come, or when surveys have to be done, so a lot of opportunities now open up. And we had actually done this. There was a land acquisition bill issue which was there in February, March. I mean, overnight the party wanted to actually do a survey of a few thousand of their members in 5 states, separated by urban, rural. And we did it within 48 hours, an outbound automated call with 4 questions, with multiple choice, and you got responses back. Now, this would otherwise just not have been possible in any other world. And these are their members. So you have information on them with a voter ID. Again, you have gender, you have age, you know, from the PIN code, you know, urban, rural. So you know how people are thinking. So that becomes, this is BJP's CRM. This is the foundation. Now when rallies happen or events happen, all you need to do is very simple. If you can just have a missed call number for that event, and they give a missed call, and you can have a sort of field added saying that this individual or this phone number linked with this individual attended this event. So multiple things become possible. And of course, you know the success of the campaign. BJP has become the world's largest political party. Over 10.5 crore members in the 5 months that the campaign ran. And for BJP also, there was a real-time reporting panel that we had made, so which actually helped them decide which states need to be targeted more. People could see the response right down to the district level of actual campaigns that they were doing. Now, I say this because traditionally we have always think of political parties as basically very ancient in their use of technology. The campaign, 2014 campaign was the first step. The membership campaign is the second step. And I think in terms of sort of the reach for a political party, pretty much every person over 18 is a potential customer. And just like in the US, I think in India also you will find that political parties will use technology, because there are no prizes for coming second. I mean, if you get 49.9% and the other person has got 50.1%, you have 5 years to regret, what went wrong. So this is an example again of workflows. So the case study, dropped leads recycling for a stockbroking company. So the idea is again, automate what otherwise would be manual tasks. So you send out an email, depending on what action is taken, and whether the form is filled or not, you can have certain actions, again, which are taken. All of this can be done without writing software through workflows today. So this automates the entire customer interaction process. And leads, which today in most companies get converted probably 1 in 10. Now the other 9 leads, which are sort of dropped, can now be put through a content program. You can take the customer through a content journey. And then depending on where they act, you can then have the appropriate action being taken. A similar sort of example, again, different workflows for a leading educational institution. So where the idea was to streamline the acquisition process. So the automation segregated the students into different buckets, depending on the activity, based on the subject of the message that was sent out and so on. Again, why I'm bringing this up is, this is really at the heart of MarTech, where automation streamlines and simplifies and accelerates the time taken to do different things, which otherwise would require software at each of the stages. So this is really a very simple example of how technology can start bringing a dramatic change in the marketing function. And this is just the beginning. I think as we start collecting more data, the customer outreach is going to become more and more personalized as we go along. So switching tracks a little bit to the world of machines. So I think we've heard about M2M and Internet of Things for a long time. I think now is where we are seeing all of these things come together. From the B2C side, customers want real-time information, fulfillment, and gratification. I mean, an example of really an Internet of Things is the vehicle tracking systems, which is happening today, not through separate devices perhaps, but through apps in cars. So when you order a Ola ask for Ola or a Uber, you have this happening. You're able to track a vehicle. Again, this was unthinkable 1 or 2 years ago, but a lot of us are doing this. The same principle really applies in the B2B side for assets, from procurement to supply chain to production to distribution. I'll talk a little bit more going ahead on the B2B side. So what you have is that industrial and corporate assets need to align really with this new world, because you have now sensors which can take data, send it out over cellular networks, get to a server where analytics can be done, actions can be taken, information can be sent back, and so on. So all of this now becomes possible, and that really creates the foundation for the new Internet of Things. So there's a video which I think helps put many of these things and shows you different examples of what can be done.
The consumer internet connects about 5 billion devices. Think about all the new business models that came about, all the changes in our lives. And now imagine we connect 50 billion devices to each other. Devices that run manufacturing floors, that run energy plants, that run healthcare systems. What kind of value can they create in the world? What kind of business models can happen through this?
We need businesses to rethink their business models. You got to start looking differently at your consumer relationship, the way you price your products, the way you provide the services. And increasingly we see you don't pay for a product per se, but increasingly you pay for a service. You see increasing importance of these ecosystems that together start creating these tremendous new solutions that dramatically can improve people's lives.
We can really increase the utilization rate of products. Today, the utilization rate of cars is maybe 15%. Half of the time is used to search for parking spaces or standing in traffic jams. Using data and software, we will be enabled to automate driving. We will bring up the utilization rate, and I think the same might happen to the industry.
We will see devices that no longer fail or are repaired before the failure happens. And that will change the way that we buy products, that will change the way we rent products, that will change the way we think about products.
In the past, the focus was on automation of muscle work. In the future, software will really help us to automate knowledge work, to come up with better decisions, faster decisions.
The skill set required for jobs in manufacturing will dramatically change. We would see far more white-collar workers in factories than what we have today. We will see many products being offered as services.
Some people estimate that the industrial Internet of Things is as big as the entire US economy. Capturing that benefit, creating the right framework, engaging the right parties is essential so that at the end of the day, the benefits can outweigh the risks.
There are some pretty significant questions that leaders within those organizations have. By coming together and sharing perspectives and understanding how others are thinking about these issues, they can collectively come up with better approaches to be able to create the enabling environment, as well as individually walk away with a more informed position to make individual decisions.
The ability to rethink products and services, reinvent business models, and retrain and retool the workforce. Doing this and more will be important to make sure that this trend, the industrial Internet of Things, doesn't just deliver the business and economic advantage, but also the human advantage. It's the people behind it that have the power to make it truly transformative.
So that sort of lays out, that video from World Economic Forum, sort of lays out the diverse applications and potential of what you're going to see going forward, as machines start getting connected to the internet. So here's the sort of basic flow. You have industrial assets which generate raw data that is sent out over the internet. So industrial assets typically will have sensors, so whether it's temperature, whether it's location, whether it's any other parameter that needs to be picked up, sent out over the internet. It's converted really to contextual data. It provides actionable info, and which leads to action. So this is the basic flow that's there. And if you look at sort of the typical IoT stack, again, similar. You have devices which are then sent out over the network, wireless networks to server platforms. You can have third-party integration. You have various kinds of devices that are there. Now, and the four sort of units, and we'll talk more about elements which are there, is how do you measure, how do you monitor, how do you analyze, and how do you control. And you have a very diverse range of applications that now become possible with this. It's pretty much limited to how we can imagine, and we'll talk about a case study towards the end. But the two distinct models really are, one side is information and analysis. So you're collecting, so vehicle tracking is a very good example of information and analysis. And the second side is automation and control. So we can give you one example here where, say, where you have ATMs. Now, one of the biggest cost factors in ATMs is basically power consumption. So how can you ensure that, how can you monitor whether the AC is on or off? And this was a use case which came to us from one of the companies where the watchman basically starts sitting inside and puts the AC on at night. And so you have 8-10 hours without really customers interacting. So can that be remotely monitored? Can the temperature or the AC be remotely monitored and controlled? So various use cases now become possible. So if you take a couple of examples, so say if you want to track monitoring and optimizing inventory and logistics in the retail industry, sensor-driven decision analytics, where you identify fault rate in manufacturing units and you create mitigation strategies. Now, optimization of whether it's processes or resources now become possible. In a way, auto-drive, self-driving cars are examples of autonomous systems. So you have collision avoidance systems, which senses objects around and so on. So you have a very good book which really talks about many of these ideas, written by 2 MIT professors, The Second Machine Age. I think it's an excellent book which starts to give you a look ahead as to what tomorrow's world will start looking like. And you're starting to see this even in India, where you have factories now using robots also. So you have a new world which is sort of emerging. Every time we think in IT as to, okay, we've just done with one wave and what's next, like Ed was talking about. And you have these new waves which are emerging, which I think for the next 3-4 years will completely transform industry. And the early adopters, these disruptions give early adopters a great opportunity to actually build forward. There are diverse applications. Pretty much every industry that you can think of, whether it's dairy, and we'll take an example from there, in oil and gas, or transportation and railways, smart cities, as part of the Digital India program, in power, smart meters, which can enable real-time tweaking of distribution, production. Energy consumption can be optimized because of data being available. Google had bought a company called Nest. So you have thermostats which now can communicate and send out data. And you have apps, of course, which can then control these devices. So there's a whole new world. It's only limited really by our imagination on what can be done. And in organizations, the ability to look at rollouts. So I think the way to think about is which sort of assets are there in your organization, which one would you like to track in real time? How can that make a big difference to your own productivity, your own possibly cost optimizations? So the first step really would be to, what is it that you want to measure? Which are the parameters that you want to be able to track? How are you going to acquire that data? And then you have sensors, apps, and devices. That's the sort of building blocks of the IoT solution. And then you'll need a communication stack, a data stack, and of course, much of it is going to flow back into the cloud. Then the analytics that needs to be done. So what kind of analysis do you want done? What are the models that you want to run? Where do you want to set up? What are the correlations between different data points? And then finally, the control systems which are there. Where are the event notifications which need to go out? Link them up again with decision support systems, and so on. So here's an example. This is a large dairy company in India for whom we had done we have an ongoing implementation right now. So where their idea was so they have 100 CNF warehouses where they needed to monitor and essentially check the temperature or maintain the freshness of milk. So you want to monitor the temperature very closely, and if there are fluctuations, the fluctuations happen when doors are opened and closed, and if the door is not closed, then you have a problem very quickly. The milk can go bad, and that can lead to big losses or worse. So you needed a real-time monitoring system. So essentially you have a sensor which can then pick up the info, send it out to a server-side system, and then you have rules which are set up there for event notifications, and when you are, of course, doing the real-time tracking, but you want to send out alerts only on exceptions which are there. So that's what you set up on the server side. And a system like this really can reduce the faults in the system dramatically, because you have real-time monitoring of incidents which can take place, actions can be taken, the franchisee and the company can be alerted in real time, and so on. So this is just one simple example, but I think as you start thinking through in your own organizations, you will find multiple use cases, I think, which you will start emerging of assets, movable, immovable, different parameters which can now be tracked. And again, over the last few years, the costs of many of these elements in the value chain have fallen dramatically. So the variable cost, once you have the system in place, is probably tens of rupees or a few hundred rupees a month. And the benefits, I think, are substantial. So in that sense, IoT, I think, for businesses is really a 10x type of opportunity. So if you look ahead, this is, I think, a glimpse into sort of tomorrow's world that all of you as CIOs are going to experience. It's a continuing digital transformation which began maybe 40, 50 years ago with the mainframe computers and so on, and that's ongoing. And if anything, it's picking up pace faster. You have smart customers. Again, You look ahead to 2019, there are going to be 600 million smartphones in India, one in pretty much every household of the country, on 4G networks. So you have phones which are going to be better than what any of us are using today, on networks which are faster than what any of us are used to. Now, how does that change the world? What are customer expectations which are going to be changing? And that sort of disruption creates opportunities, inflection points for companies. And similarly with machines, like we saw. And with technology really is the connecting layer in all of this. So if I were to leave you with one message, I think it's get ready for the world of smart customers, smart machines, and the solutions in both of these things are for smart customers. You have marketing technology, which can deliver customized communications to them, targeted communication relevant to them. And for IoT, you have smart machines, which can then be managed, tracked remotely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Could we take a couple of questions?
Sure.
Yeah. So if we have any question, yes, you could raise your hand. We will come to you with the microphone. Please introduce yourself and then present the question. Thank you.
So indeed, it's a very great presentation. Thank you very much for giving us so many details. My name is Ravi Shankar. I am from HDFC Bank. So nowadays, everyone is talking about the digital penetration, and more apps are getting created. This all these things are leading to that invading the what you call personal space of the customer. So how we are going to be address that?
I think the key question is, how do you, yeah, that'll be great. So the question really is around how do you address the personal space of the customer with all of these things that are going on. I think the key principle really should be around opt-in and with permission. So in many of these cases, I think as long as you can take customer opt-ins, I think that's what people actually would want it. Let's say you go into Phoenix Mall. I would actually love to get offers at that particular point of time. So I'm willing to give my location at that particular point of time to get relevant offers which are there. So I think as long as we make opt-in, first is permission-based, so opt-in, and make opt-out easy. I think these are the two principles which are there. See, I think people are also getting used to, because of the social networks, a lot of their personal data is really being put out on social networks anyways. So I think society as a whole adjusts to new levels of disclosure. But from a business and customer, I think the safest way is to look at easy opt-in, easy opt-out, and make the information, in fact, as relevant to the customer as possible, as contextual as possible. And that is where I think the greater the information that can be leveraged, especially past purchasing history, like profile, social, behavioral info, I think that helps creating a better experience. So that's where I think MarTech is going to play a big role in creating these unique experiences, which is what people will like. When Amazon sends me out books from authors, which I probably would not have heard about, or say in the US case, Pandora gives out song lists, songs which you probably would not have heard about. People like that. So they're willing to share things as long as you can get more out of it.
So if we don't have another question,
thank you.
Thank you very much. But Mr. Jain, before you leave, we would like to say a big thank you to you. We would request Mr. Ibrahim Ahmed to please join us on stage to hand over a memento. Mr. Ibrahim Ahmed, the Group Editor, Cyber Media, handing over a memento to Mr. Jain. Ladies and gentlemen, please get your hands together as Mr. Ahmed hands over the memento. Thank you very much, sir.